Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about computer science degrees. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, most CS courses focus on subjects like physics, chemistry, math, calculus, and some humanitarian subjects, but they often skip practical topics like requirements or software architecture. Can you explain in simple terms what the use of a computer science degree is? Well, this is going to get really opinionated really quickly because the long and short of it is that uh, computer science, depending on how you want to look at it, is not the same thing as software development. Go figure, right? So when you take, for example, a subject like engineering, that's even broader. If you're going to be said to be an engineer, how will the school know what type of engineer you need to be or you're aiming to be? That's kind of tricky because there could be quite a few things you could use your engineering degree for. And a computer science degree is a similar sort of beast. So computer science is not necessarily the same thing as software development. And I know that that sounds fluffy, but let me try to explain it a little bit. So one part is, of course, that you have to understand that the education system of every single country in the entire world is a political entity. What I'm saying is that regardless of where you go, every school system has requirements on them that is not necessarily always focused on getting you a new job or getting you to wherever you need to be. There's always a nuance to like what is going to be like hard practical skills that you absolutely need, what's going to be so useful, and what's going to be completely pointless. And I don't know of a single government run education program where there is not at least some politics involved. I can only speak for my own country and so forth, but I can promise you guys, like, not every single like course or like whatever you're taking in school has been just approved by people whose only focus is to get you a job. They all know exactly what they're doing and so forth. There's tons and tons of bureaucracy and politics involved, and so some subjects may be more relevant than others, and some get switched out and some remain the same and so forth and so forth. Really can differ from you know from generation to generation. And so the if I'm gonna be like as brutally honest as I can with at least what I believe a computer science degree is useful for, if you are learning the basics of programming and things like that, you actually know how to write software. So for a software developer, you know physics, chemistry, and calculus and so forth and so forth is not going to be a practical skill for you. The thing that is going to give you a job, I'm assuming now again, is that you're not going to be a computer scientist, you're not going to go into data engineering or like some job where these things are actually hard requirements. Because as you can imagine, if you're going to work on systems that do actually require a intimate knowledge of chemistry, for example, then yeah, then it's pretty good that you have that with you. But the coding part is going to be the thing that gives you the most amount of value. And then, of course, every single person who's ever taken a boot camp is then going to hold up their hand and say, but I learned boot camp, I've learned how to write software in my boot camp that I took online and things like that. And then I tell you the only thing that I can say, which is just based on my experience, and that is that to the employer, the average employer, the computer science degree is more prestigious than the boot camp. That's it. It's branding, basically. If you have a computer science degree from a fancy school, it doesn't matter if it's computer science. I wouldn't even go as far as that. I mean, I mean, pick your school here. Like, as far as I know, anybody who's been to Stanford in North America or MIT or something like that, for some reason, everybody associates that with, oh, you must be really, really good. We do the same thing with or FANG companies. If you work for a FANG company, immediately people notice. You have a similar sort of thing here. I mean, we have it here in my region as well. There are certain schools that are fancier than others and so forth and so forth. So people kind of go, oh, that's pretty cool. And I'll tell you the thing that I tell everybody, and that is only relevant in very specific situations and for the first job, or like the first few jobs and so forth, where these are the things that, like, I've made the reference to, that when you create a CV, the best thing for you is to think about it a little bit as a store or a store window, where the idea is for you to make it presentable to people so that they will come into your store, in this case so that they will call you back, and so you get to do an interview and a code test and all that stuff. And that's when the real stuff actually starts. But if you can't even get there, that's a problem. That's why these sorts of things can matter to you, because depending on your region and the culture and so forth, the computer science degree might be a hard requirement. Like, they won't even look at your CV, regardless of how good you are. They won't even consider it because you do not have it. That is not the norm. Well, I'm not going to say that it's not the norm, because I don't know about like the whole world and so forth. It is hard to say here, and the long and short of it is that simple, if you ask me, at the very least, because the coding skills that you need in order to do a good job as a software developer, you do not need a university degree to get that information. It is, if you know with yourself that it's hard for you to be disciplined and do boot camps and stuff like that, and you want that extra brand value, then just go and absolutely do it. Or if, as I said, you have a more academic inclination towards the sort of software development that you want to do. But if you want to do what I do as a web developer or anything like that, there is nothing in the university which is going to be exclusive, that's the only place you can get it. All of that information is available online. You can be completely self-taught, you can take a boot camp, or so forth and so forth. The time investments are still roughly the same, I would say, because like, you still need to learn it, and that takes time, regardless of if you have a degree or if you don't have a degree, or like a certificate from a boot camp or something like that. But you're not going to need this computer science degree after, I mean, it's not even after a few years. Like, and even if you're on your first job or your second job, even if you have a degree, they're still going to say yay or nay, not based on the degree, but based on how they perceive you and your skills. So the degree is really, as I said, it's just something you put in the store window to get you in the door, assuming, of course, that you have the coding skills. So what I want you to take away from this is that I would say that the reason why you have, like, why academics or why like schools and so forth like have a broader range of topics that may not be necessarily only coding related is because they keep it a little bit, they have politics that they need to align with the government and so forth, of course, but they also, as I said, just because you're taking a computer science degree, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a professional software developer. You could be using that, the information you're getting is like, it's still very useful information, and it's not necessarily a direct correlation between the work of a software developer or web developer or whatever, right, and what you're taking in school. There are vocational schools and things like that do have that sort of focus, where they focus really, really hard on just a specific job. That might be more relevant for you if that is what you're looking for. So I do see a computer science degree, as I said, it's a little bit like an engineering degree. It's usually broader than those laser focused educations like boot camps and things like that. The value you get from it is usually the brand value, assuming now that we exclude like coding things and so forth, because these extra courses that, as I said, physics, chemistry, like what have you, right, they don't really translate all that well into the work life if your aim is to be a web developer. I mean, all knowledge is useful, but it's not going to be like a really, really useful thing for you. The practical skills are going to be more useful for you in that sort of situation. But the degree in some situations weighs a little bit heavier. In other words, there's a sensation of that you are a better candidate for certain roles just because you have a degree. As I said, it's literally like working for Google or fan companies and so forth. If they see that on your CV, they might be more interested. You still have to do the code interview. You're still going to have to do the personal interview. So like, even if you do have that on your CV, you're still going to get evaluated. So you can't just take a degree and then, it's all good, right? That's not how it works. But it does factor in for some situations. But once you have a few years of work experience, it doesn't matter for at all, not in the slightest. So if you want to not like take a degree or so forth because it might be very expensive, like so forth and so forth, you can take a boot camp and be more laser focused on specifically software development, and that will work for you. I promise you, you will not miss out on the practical skills you need in order to survive as a software developer by doing so. The only thing that can happen is, of course, that it's harder for you to commit like these sorts of social things that might happen for yourself, and potentially some jobs might be close to you because they have this weird mindset about, yeah, the degree is equal to candidate we're going to hire, and if you don't have a degree, therefore you're not applicable, sort of the deal, right? Not every company thinks that way, far from it, but it is something you should factor in. So in essence, the degree gives you a nice leg up and a way, like a foot in the door type of deal for certain situations, but it's not a hard requirement to become a software developer or a web developer or anything like that. Have a great day.